Luca Pisaroni, welcome to Cultural Attaché, so we can talk about your participation in LA Opera's production of The Barber of Seville.
Thank you for having me.
Stanislavski, who was a great acting coach and director, said there are no small roles, just small actors. Is the same thing true in opera?
Yes, 100%.
So,
And I learned this very early in my career. I was 27 years old in Salzburg singing Mazzetto, and I thought, small role, I'm Italian, this is going to be a walk in the park. And then it turns out that between Nicolaus Harnoncourt conducting and Martin Cusion directing, I learned very quickly there is no such a thing as a small role. And actually, if you care and if you put enough effort, you can make something interesting in anything you sing and anything you do. And it was really, I'm really pleased that I had that chance because it made a difference in my career right away.
Now, you've sung the title role in Don Giovanni at the Metropolitan Opera.
Yes.
What is the motivation for taking on a role like Don Basilio in a production in Los Angeles?
Interesting. I like to choose roles that I think are interesting dramatically. And so in the Buffo repertoire, Basilio is one of the staples of the repertoire. So it was when they asked me if I wanted to do it, I said immediately yes, because I think it's a fun role. He has a great tradition of great singer singing this role. So I wanted to challenge myself in doing it. And in addition, it's interesting, I think, to try to find a new reading of Basilio. I can go 1950 Italian comedy, but I think, in 2023, we can probably add another layer and trying to make it a bit more modern and a bit more, contemporary. And so it's a challenge, and I have a great cast to work with here. And I'm really happy I get to do it with such a great cast, because a lot of them have done the role so many times, like Isabel Leonard, Paolo Bordogna, Edgardo Rocha, and Joshua Hopkins. And I come, with a fresh approach and trying to be as honest to the character that I can be. And I, in one of the rehearsal, we did a recitativo, and at the end, Paolo Bordogno sings Don Bartolo, said to me, "Great." And I said, "Do you really like it?" He said, "Yes, because there are none of these old tradition, over the top things, and I really like it." And I really appreciate that he said that, because that's my intent, to try to make it a more sober and modern character.
Do you think there's too much reliance on the tradition of the way roles have been done? Or is it easier for you as a singer, as an actor, because I believe opera singers have to be both, to bring something new, not just to this role, but to other roles as well, that defy what those traditional approaches are to a character?
It is easy. It is easy to repeat yourself and to go to your safe place of repeating the same jokes and somehow having like a autopilot throughout the performance. It's certainly a bit more difficult and challenging, not only for the singer, but also for the director, to try to invent, quote unquote, something new. I prefer to invent, in the sense that I wanna try to make a role as close as to me as I can, in close to my sensitivity. So I wanted to make it work for me. Obviously, I'm 6'4", I'm lean, lumpy, and so it's different than if I were, shorter, maybe a bit bigger, So I try to make it work, because I think the great thing about comedy is everybody brings a different layer to comedy. You can laugh in so many more different ways. And so I want to use my physicality and my face to make them laugh because of what I do with my body, and not trying to replicate, somebody that is completely different just because he is at work. It has worked for so many years. But it takes time. Thankfully, here it's the perfect environment, and we had plenty of rehearsal. So I'm exploring.
How much do you have to find yourself in a character to play the character?
It's called acting for a reason, because you act. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be you. You just have to find the motivation to do to portray the action of the character. But it's not that because I play Don Giovanni, I mistreat women, or because I play Basilio, you know, I try to make a joke every time I say a phrase. You know, it's called acting for a reason. You just have to do your job. And one thing that I do is to find in my life experience something that I can use to either make a joke or convey something. And sometimes it helps, it is helpful. But you know, in the first scene of Don Giovanni, when you come out and Donna Anna screams, there is not a lot of personal history there to make me, you know, search in my life experience, you know, a woman that runs after me because I just tried to rape her. So, you know, you just have to make it believe. I think the most important thing is that you take your character seriously and you forget about you and think about how the character will think. This is something that I always do. I don't think, what is Luca thinking now? No, what is Basilio thinking? What is Basilio thinking now? If he says that phrase, why? Because he only thinks about money. Good. So we are going to say it in a way that is clear for everybody that he only cares about money and he has no morals and he will sell anything just to get that. And so this is what I think you need to do. Otherwise, you know, once I'm off the stage, I play myself. I don't play my roles.
Right. No, the reason I asked you is it was a reverse way because there's so much conversation about how people have to have lived in experiences to be cast in things now. You know,
I don't agree.
Which I don't agree with.
I don't agree. And sorry. And for me, the great thing about being an actor, it's actually the opposite. Meaning, I can try to play somebody that is completely different than me, to try to understand, and understanding this person makes me a better person, because then in real life I can take that experience and say, you see, it went through this, so I will be even more kind and even more understanding in real life, you know. And this is what I think is a mistake, that, you know, only certain people can play a certain role. And I have to say, if we go down the road, you never end, because then there is category of subcategories, and then your repertoire is going to become so small that then what? I can play only Italian roles because I'm Italian, and French can only play French role. And throughout history, we have been proven over and over again the great performance that they had nothing to do with those roles, where now are taken like the singer that sang their repertoire, one for all. Sam Remy was born in Kansas, never been to Pesaro, or no idea about Rossini, and yet is the Rossini bass of my generation. There is nobody like him, right? And so I think it's so much more to, we need to give us credit to have sensitivity to be able to say something even about subjects that they are so far away from us, I believe.
I completely agree with you, because if we went by that other standard that is becoming more and more, is creeping more and more into how people think about casting, then Anthony Hopkins would really have had to have eaten people to play Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs.
Yes, and for example, then, you know, if you do Clemenza di Tito, so the Tito should only be an Italian, and not just any Italian, somebody in Rome, because it was an emperor. You know what I mean? It's just that to me makes no sense whatsoever.
Right. Now, Don Basilio is a music teacher. So you said, you know, pull on your own experiences and things like that, you know, to help enlighten the character. Was there any one music teacher that was most influential for you? Not that you're basing this performance on that character, But I'm just wondering, as somebody playing a music teacher, what has your experience with music teachers, helped you bring to this role, since it is a role debut for you?
Yes, I had a tenor from Argentina. His name was Renato Sassola, and he was a great tenor of the Teatro Colón, and he sang there for 30 years. And I met him by chance in Milano, and it was a difficult period for me because I was in the Conservatorio singing a repertoire that it was not really my repertoire. I felt I was not ready to sing that kind of stuff, like Nabucco, like Ferrando from Trovatore, and I was searching because I wasn't happy, and he really changed my perspective, and he helped me really free my voice and free my technique and my experience and my relationship also with music and how to produce it. And as he helped me so much that I eventually moved to South America for 6 months to work with him, and he really did make a big difference for me, and I'm eternally grateful. And I remember I sang for him Madamina, and I started with the recitativo, consolatevi, non siete voi, non foste. And I remember after 5 phrases, he said to me, oh, no, you can do this much easier. You work way too hard. And I went, oh, thank you. Because at the time, I remember I was like, oh my God, these recitativi are really difficult. Why am I, I'm so tired even before starting the aria. How can I sing, how can I sing an aria that is 4 minutes and a half if I'm already tired? He really opened up an entire new world for me. He has he's not with us anymore. He passed away some years ago, but he has a really special place in my heart.
Now, your website lists 5 Rossini roles as part of your repertoire.
Yes.
Obviously, you're adding, Don Basilio with this production. But is there something about the way Rossini writes that fits comfortably in your instrument?
Yes, I liked the repertoire. It was, I think, for a young singer is perfect because he forces you to keep your voice lean and to keep your voice flexible. And I think especially when you are in your 20s and early 30s, this really makes a difference, I think, because now I think there is a tendency to open and to go into the dramatic role immediately, and I think it's a mistake. If you think that somebody like Ferruccio Furlanetto, a great Italian bass, sang Figaro until he was 55. If you think there was Evan Dam sang Leporello in his 60s. If you think I saw Sam Raimi at the Met singing Leporello 60 plus. And Sam Raimi sang all the heavy repertoire. I think this kind of repertoire, it's very healthy. It keeps your voice in check, and it's a constant teacher, because ultimately, you can have all the teachers, but then it's the stage and being on stage singing this repertoire that you have to really hone your craft and say, oh, in the studio I've done that note in a certain way, but here I can't. I need to find something else. And that's why I always say to young singers, don't be in a hurry. Stay in your repertoire, in this repertoire, Mozart, Rossini, bel canto, as long as you can, because there is no way you're going to damage your voice, and you can learn so much, and you can use what you learn in this repertoire into the heavier repertoire. And when you are confronted with that repertoire, you have a bag of tools to deal with that technical issues in a much broader way than if you started that immediately.
We live in a society that thinks that everything is a competition. That there are singing competitions, there's cooking competitions, there's how can you build a house better competitions. But is there a negative influence that these kind of competitions have perhaps on young opera singers, thinking that they have to go for the gusto, they have to get that immediate applause and recognition?
Look, I have to be honest with you. In my career, I've done only one competition. And it was a very wise advice that a pianist from Teatro La Scala gave me. Said competition can be useful, but I think it's better if you do audition and you get a role, because doing roles, especially when you're young, and small roles, expose you to the real work that it takes to be an opera singer. Competition are great. You win some money, you know, people can notice you. But I always focus my career doing auditions, and it was a very good suggestion, because I tell you, you know, when I did an audition with Arno Kur at age, I was at the time, it was in 1999, can you imagine? And I was 24, and I did an audition in Zurich. And he said, would you like to sing Mazzetto in Salzburg? You know, and it was Thomas Sampson, Hildebrando d'Arcangelo, Anna Netrebko, Melanie Diener, Magdalena Kozhena. I said, of course I want to do it. And I tell you, just being in the same room with such an artist made me a better artist. I learned so much just going to rehearsal and see the rehearsal process, how they create, how they take care of their voices. Do they sing all the time, or do they mark? You know, how much energy they put into the rehearsal. And this for me was so useful that I think was worth any prize of any competition.
When you're in a production of any given opera, at what point do you know if you're in a good one or one that isn't going to be as satisfying as you would hope?
I can tell you right away. I love this question. You know, sometimes you know from the beginning. Really, first rehearsal, either when you have music rehearsal with the conductor, and you know immediately if it's somebody who is in control or has something interesting to say, or is somebody who is, just as we say, worried about traffic control. And the same thing in the first meeting with the director. If he's somebody who goes for you know, broad strokes, or actually is interested in detailing and searching for something new. So we know pretty much immediately. But I have to say, sometimes it happens to me that I did a production, I was like, I wasn't convinced. And only when we did the entire opera and I saw the arch, then I thought, oh, wow, this is going to work. Oh, wow, this is going to be a good production. And I always, when I create, try to say, let's not work too much on detailing at the beginning. I need to know the frame, because once I know the journey of my character, then I would say to a director, I can add detailing and you can tell me more or less, or try something different. But it's pretty much, we look at each other and we know if it's going to be a good production or not immediately.
And then you're grateful that it's only a finite number of performances. It's not, you know, it's not like a Broadway musical where it's open-ended.
Yes, you know, but to be honest, even when it's a bad production, you know, it goes into it so much work that even if it's a bad production, you always try to find motivation and the energy to give everything you have at the performances. And, you know, and I have to tell you, I have a good trick, mind trick that I used, and I've used throughout my career, and I suggest young singer use it too. Even if it's the worst production and you are miserable, do not tell yourself and don't repeat it, but say to yourself, believe in this and put yourself into it. Because if you cannot believe in it and you are not convinced and you are not fully committed, it's impossible to be able to convince the audience. And I believe the audience deserves everything, 100% your effort every night when you are on stage. Then when the run is over, you can say to yourself, God, that production was not really good, wasn't it? But until then, just give it all. Your all.
You can also say at the end of that run, and I made it through.
Yeah, I don't look like this, you know, because even when it's bad, it's such you know, I got to do a job that is not a job, is a passion, and so you have to, you know, contest, you know, you need to be grateful for the fact that I can express myself and be on a stage in front of an audience.
And you probably learn as much from productions that aren't good as you do from ones that are.
Absolutely. It's the same thing with singing. You know, as much as you know, you need to know what you want to do, you need to know what you don't want to do. And it's the same thing. If you do a production that is not good, you say, this I will never do, or that scene in that contest I will never, you know, find a solution like I did, but I will find something else.
So what do you think the biggest challenges are in doing a successful production of the Barber of Seville?
I take my character very seriously. To be funny, I think it has to be very serious, meaning my character takes himself very seriously. The situation is funny, but you never overplay it, because I think the challenge is you can do so many untasteful things in anything that at the moment, you know, it could be a little bit like having a chocolate cake with some cream, topped with some more chocolate, topped with some more cream, and at the end you're like, delicious, but after a spoon of it, I cannot take it anymore because it's too sweet. So you need to be able to balance the funny part so that when you actually do something funny, there is a reaction from the audience.
And everybody has their own definition of what's funny.
Yeah, but I think we will sense it. And, you know, and it's great that the dress rehearsal is open so that you can have a feeling of how, you know, audiences are gonna respond. Because sometimes it happens that you do a joke and in the rehearsal room, everybody laughs. And then you go on stage and the audience doesn't move, crickets. And sometimes it's the opposite, that you do something that in the audience, in the rehearsal room, you know, yes, people smile and then the audience goes crazy. So you need to have this open dialogue dialogue with the audience to understand what works and what doesn't.
This is something I've never asked, you know, an opera singer performing in Los Angeles. And I'm born and raised here, and there's no right or wrong answer to what I'm about to ask you, Luca.
Okay.
What is the reputation of Los Angeles as an opera city, or about this particular opera company?
Oh, it's one of the, you know, the main opera houses in America. It has a great reputation. You know, you have a fantastic music director, James Conlon, and you know, you know, I think his 40 years of career is a monument. You know, he started like a adolescent. You know, he's been in this business at such a high level for a long time, and you can see, you know, the musical choices they made have shaped his opera house. So it's a great reputation, and I always try to come to Los Angeles, and I never manage. And so when they asked me to come, I was very, very happy to be able to do this here.
If you could pick any role in any opera to perform in Los Angeles, what would it be?
Oh, my list is so long. I don't think I think I could do an entire season just of roles that I would like to sing. But, you know, I don't think a overdose of Luca Pisaroni would be, you know, welcomed. But there is so much in the French repertoire that I like Péléas et Mélisande, Faust, Gounod, Damnation de Faust, Les Contes d'Hoffmann, and the entire repertoire, you know, there is Sonnambula, Puritani, Lucrezia Borgia, Elisir d'Amore, Don Pasquale. Oh, there is so much that I would like to sing.
So is moving into roles like Dutchman something that you see in your future?
Yeah, and it's, you know, that's a good question, you know, because I worked a little bit with José Van Damme, and he went into this German repertoire, but I think it's not my thing. I think the Italian roles are more my thing. So you know, I wanted to embrace the fact that I think I can add something very personal to this Italian bel canto, and this is the direction that I wanted to go. Even though it would be a dream of mine to be able to sing Dutchman, honestly, or you know, it's one of my favorite roles.
Yeah, it's also an incredible opera. Although
Incredible.
Rossini was not exactly kind to Wagner, because I think Rossini said something along the lines of he besmirched Lohengrin.
You know, it's a completely different, you know, it's a completely different writing style.
Of course.
So you can, you know, when you do Rossini, you can see the genius in certain in certain parts, really, and it was his language, how he did it. And I have done some Rossini serio, and I honestly was blown away by how clever and how genius certain pages are. You know, I've done Maometto Secondo, and it was an incredible discovery for me. And so, you know, maybe it was his taste, but they are both musically absolutely interesting.
Right. So let me ask you one more thing. You know, the major aria that you have in this opera discusses slander. Now, it's not a real intellectual discussion of slander. He's trying to manipulate a situation
Yes.
in the Barber of Seville.
Yes.
But if you take the opera out of the context, I mean, we live in a world where anybody can say anything about anybody without recrimination, because it's all done anonymously, because we can hide behind technology and, you know, pseudonyms and things like that. Do you think that there is a bigger point to understand about slander, that it's not just necessarily a device to manipulate a situation, you know, vis-a-vis these relationships in the Barber of Seville, that slander has become something that is a more serious issue today than it may have been when Rossini first composed this opera?
There is a correlation. I think you know, it's a different age. We grew up without telephone, and now, you know, everybody has a telephone. I wish people were a little bit kinder, to be honest with you, because there are so many performances of great singers that nobody ever knew, you know, that when they went to Bologna or, you know, Parma, it just was a relationship between the singer and the audience in that night. Now you can do a terrible concert in the middle of Brazil in the Amazon, and everybody's going to know because somebody has a phone and can record it, which puts, I think, an incredible stress on performers today. We are, I think, in a completely different world, and we have a level of stress that at the time they didn't have. Also, the competition was completely different. You cannot compare it. To me, I think I don't like the fact that people come to a performance and then, you know, write terrible things, and you know, without completely understanding the amount of work that goes into it, and without any regards for, you know, the personal feelings of performers. Sometimes, you know, reviews are mean, and it's, you know, nobody who performs likes to read mean reviews. And there is something that is very delicate for a performer, because we put we open ourselves, and we are in a very vulnerable position. And you know, it's very easy to write something mean and to write something bad. It's very easy, and it's kind of funny, and it's much more complicated. It takes much more work to actually to try to understand you know, somebody's motivation behind musical choices or a new production. And I tell you, because I done a world premiere in Houston, and the Phoenix, and I loved it so much that, you know, when I read that they didn't like the piece or they didn't like the production, I was really hurt, because, you know, I thought it was brilliant, and I put so much of myself into it that I really was not pleased. And it's a different situation, and I think we need to be you know, kinder and a bit more careful when we, you know, criticize things so harshly. And at the end, I think for the young generation, there is only one way to protect yourself: don't read it. There is, you know, if you know that it takes so much out of you, don't read it. Because at the end of the day, you know, even if it's a bad review on on the Los Angeles Times is one opinion of somebody that didn't like you, doesn't mean that you are not worth it or that you should stop singing because one person doesn't like you. You know, I always think, you know, even people that I think are gods like Luciano Pavarotti got bad reviews. And if he got bad reviews, Luca Pisaroni can be trashed. It's fine, because I think it was God for me. And if somebody, even in that contest, didn't like him, then anybody can say anything mean about you, me in that case.
Well, and you know, John Waters, the filmmaker, gave the advice recently that, you know, if you're going to read the good reviews, read all the bad reviews. If you're going to read the bad reviews, read all the good reviews, and then throw them all out because they're just other people's opinions anyway.
I know, but I think as a performer, you know, you tend to remember the bad and forget the good. And I can tell you, because at the beginning of my career, I would do Figaro and I would get 19 good reviews, but the only one I promise you I remember is the one that was a bad review. And so I don't remember the good ones. I only remember the bad ones. So don't read them and don't be confronted. But doesn't mean that you don't have to have a critical thinking. And I think you need to be critical, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself. And when you are unhappy about something, work on it. And so, and also, you need to have a circle of trust, of people that are brutally honest with you and say, you know, this is not good, you need to work on that, or didn't sound very good, so that you can actually keep working on yourself and grow as an artist and as a singer, as a performer.